is Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty. Rowena Dooley asking Sol citizens to report for duty.
And greetings. Welcome to the Soul Citizens. I am Griffin Gaming RPG, and it is today, what's April the 16th. Third week.
April 16th.
Is this third week in April? Yeah, great. And we are back for our show today called Is Nick's Next? Can you say that 3 times fast, Cart? Is Nick's, I can't do it. Is Nick's next? Is Nick's, I can't do it. Can you do it, Jade?
It's Nick's next, it's Nick next, it's Nick next, it's Nick next. I can do it faster. It's next. Oh, never mind.
Okay, I think fastcart got closer than any of us on that one.
Yeah.
I can't do it. But hey, welcome back. Glad you guys are here. We're continuing in this series, looking forward in Star Citizen to things to come. And before I go anywhere, let me introduce my co-host with me today. We've got Fastcart FC. How are you, FC?
I'm good. I hope everyone had a great tax day.
Okay. Yeah, right. Painful is more like it. And also we have JadeStarwatcher with us. Jade, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not going to be a Debbie Downer like.
Fastcart, yeah, right. Cal Roddy was here earlier, but Cal Roddy unfortunately had a power outage in this area. So if he pops in, just so you'll know, if his face pops up, it's just because his power came up. But we're thinking about him right now. Hopefully things will be there okay with him there at home. So we're going to continue with the Magnificent 3 instead of 4 for right now. I want to go through a throwback here, Jade.
Yes.
One of the reasons why the panel, we try to make these panels based around people's experience in Star Citizen, their knowledge about the topic, and you, like Fastcart, like myself, were around. Thank you, FC, for the subscription, for kicking us off.
Drakadog.
Oh, Drakadog. Oh, he gifted you one. Oh, I didn't look over there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Drakadog.
Yeah, thank you. We remember when this video came out, and I do want to emphasize that even though Nix has been away for a few years, this video came out 7 years ago, and we were just excited, right? I mean, we were thrilled when we saw it, and I remember we kept thinking that Nix would be next, and it did come in its own way, right, Jade? It did.
Yeah.
We got a piece of it, right?
Yeah, this video is actually so old. I think it's a year before I became a backer.
Oh, okay.
But I watched it, when they were talking about 3.0, I knew that we were going to get this. And I watched it and I was like, oh, I can't wait. And yeah, we did get it.
Yeah, well, and we did wait. That was the other thing.
And we did wait. We had a nice long wait, but we did get it.
Yeah. FC, this was like our first introduction to something outside of the Stanton system too, because there was no talk of pyro back then. Were you kind of thinking about that this would be coming pretty soon, or did you see it as something down the road somewhere? Because, a lot of times CIG, I mean, for those of you who don't know this, in the early days, when we would go to a Citizen Con or a Gamescom, when we would see things in the game, quite often, they were things that showed the future of Star Citizen, not where Star Citizen was at that time. And a lot of people got thrown off by that. Now, over the last 3 years, 4 years, they've kind of shifted more to, showing us what they can produce within a fairly reasonable time.
6 months.
But then there are people who got worked up because we were no longer seeing that stuff that was, 7, 8 years down the line. So, this was our introduction to a system back 7 years ago. So that would have been 2015, right?
Yeah, August 2015. I looked at the date of the video.
Okay.
August 2015.
Okay. What were your thoughts about that?
And back then, I thought it was going to be soon PM, like maybe 2 or 3 years before we get it. Not this long.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then I thought it was sooner. Well, sooner relatively, like I said, 2 or 3 years rather than later. But here we are.
Yeah. It's kind of a mixed bag. And to Jade's point, we did eventually get our first sampling of Nix. And it looked pretty close to what we got here. When we look at this video, you can see obviously this was, the video that they put in for concept. There was a lot more stuff displayed here as far as buildings and things. When we finally got what was Delamar, it was spread out more throughout the atmosphere. But I think for the sake of selling it and getting us an idea of what they were looking at for Delamar in the lore here, going to Levski, I think they were pretty close. They were pretty close.
And Tree 0311, thank you for the subscription for 6 months. Appreciate it. Thank you, Tree.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. And Gladestone, thank you for sharing the watch. Thank you. We appreciate that as well. Let's talk a little bit about the history of Nix, because that's something that some people may not know very much about. There's a link we're going to drop here in chat for you guys so you can follow along with us, because it's kind of a long read. But I do want to
I got it.
You got it. Okay. Yeah, I do want to kind of go to this a little bit to give you guys a point of reference when we start talking about the Nix system. And I know it may seem a little premature to be talking about it, but I think we're going to share some reasons with you guys today why we think that talking about Nix might be important. Before we do that, though, you know what, Jade, I do want to go back and show folks something here. Let me see if I can make this disappear. Let's see. I want to
By
get
the way,
rid of
the
that.
people that don't know, Nyx is the goddess of the night.
That's right.
The Greek goddess of the night. So
That's right. That's right. Let's talk about where Nyx is, because everybody's been talking about Pyro, right? And you know, there's been this big thing about Pyro. Now, hopefully you guys can read this. I am sorry I couldn't do more with this than I could. Some of you know that the star map has been out of service. It is not working. All you can do is bring up the map. You cannot zoom in on moons, planets, any orbitals, nothing at this point. It's been down for a little bit, but hopefully we'll be able to explain what this is we're looking at. Right now, what you're seeing is where we can go from Stanton. Okay. And as many of you know, there are different types of jump points in the game. Jump points / wormholes. There's small, there's medium, and there's large. And actually, when you go to the star map, they actually call them tunnels. They still call them tunnels. So I'm going to assume, Jade, that they're referring to wormholes when they say tunnel. Is that probably the best approximation? Okay, cool.
It is. It's correct.
Right. So what you're looking at right here, and you can break down these jump points based upon size, because depending on the size, the CIG has said that, you know, certain ships can pass through or maybe not pass through them, and which is still kind of crazy to me considering the size of our ships. But what I will say is this. The two systems that you can go to from Stanton using a large jump point or a large jump tunnel are Magnus, which you see on the very bottom there on the left side. And then there's also, you can go to fastcart's favorite home, Terra. That's where you can go, are those two jump points using what they call a large jump tunnel. Okay. Now we know CIG has confirmed that Pyro, at least Pyro is going to be the next system that they're looking to have us go to. So what I want to show you is the difference in that versus going to Pyro. Now on the bottom, that is Stanton. And to go to Stanton, you use a medium jump point. And from there, you can jump to Pyro, which is right above that, dead center in the screen, the one on the right center. Now, going from there, Prisoner, thank you. Thank you so much for the $5 donation. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So right above that, above Prisoner, the next place that you can jump to from Pyro using a medium jump point is Nyx. Now, again, you know, there are multiple jump points in that system. So we're not trying to say that from Pyro, that's where they have to go. We are saying, though, that because they have already talked about things such as Delamar, they've been showing us that they've been doing a revamp of Levski already. They showed us how they have been redoing the Habs, that this is giving us that their inclination is to go in that direction. Now, they may go someplace else, too. Maybe they'll do more than one. We've talked about the possibility, Jade, of CIG actually getting to a place where they could start dropping even more than one system, right? Depending on tools and all the other stuff, right? That is a possibility, right?
Yeah, but you'll probably see it on the roadmap unless it's that one that they took off the roadmap that was unannounced. There was an unannounced system on the roadmap.
And you just went where I was going to go.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you for saying no. You hit the door, because there's a lot of assumptions that we're always going to see what CIG is doing, and their transparency does not necessarily. Let's just say their transparency and gameplay have to match each other, right? So if stumbling upon or finding a new way to leave a system is advantageous to gameplay, then maybe a system could go out and they just don't announce it. And then somebody all of a sudden says, I've come across a wormhole, right? To me, that would be cool, you know, because versus let's announce that Gauss is coming out and everybody's zooming out to go find Gauss. You know what I mean? I would love for it to be an organic find that CIG does that. Now, listen, guys, I'm not saying they're going to put out 2 or 3 systems at a time. What I am saying, though, is that I think it would be very cool if, as systems become completed, they could tell us they're working on it. But when it goes out, I would love to see that we actually stumble across them, you know. Yeah. So, Jay, do you think that Nyx is next, or do you think it that they're just telling us about Nyx and it might be something else?
I would bet my life savings that Nyx is next.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right. That's
No, I
substantial.
can't take that bet.
That's
Be-
I can't take
because-
that bet.
Yeah, I know
Because-
Fastcart said Fastcart said you'll be cheated if he loses. So
Yeah, well, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that the fast part. But no, and the reasons, basically because of what you said, everything that they've shown us that's not Pyro has been Nyx. I mean, they've showed us that, Nyx planet concept art. They've showed us actual 3D modeling of Nyx 1's geology. So they've put a lot of work into Nyx. I would be shocked if Nyx wasn't the next system after Pyro.
yeah, the concept art we saw was
Okay.
beautiful. The images that we saw. Fastcart, what were you gonna say?
Okay, Jade, I check my savings account. I have $500. Is that good enough for a bet?
That'll work.
All right. Well, let's talk about the system a little bit here. And we're going to read a little bit here. Like I said, we dropped the link in for you guys to follow us. So just kind of follow along here. Nyx was discovered in 2582 during the height of the newly formed United Empire of Earth's territorial expansion. The system consists of 3 planets circling an F-type main sequence star. Astronomically, the most distinct aspect of Nyx is that it is located directly on the border of a dark nebula, which enshrouds the orbits of all 3 worlds and hampers travel. Jay, we want to hear you talk about that a little later. The system was first charted through a jump point in the Bremen system by solo nav jumper Carla Larry, who described what she found in her official claim as lacking significant mineral deposits or logical reasons to apply the expense of terraformation. Despite her less than encouraging initial assessment, Larry did make an attempt to formally name the star's 3 worlds: Lou, Morgan, and Ashley, apparently after 3 separate romantic conquests she was pursuing. While the UEE government has never recognized these names and they have never been widely used, Larry did say before her death that all 3 of the namesakes were touched by the gesture. Recently, Nyx has gained some additional utility as a transit system for suppliers headed for the Synth World project, which means there can be a significant credit value of cargo moving through the system at any one time. Small-scale piracy is not uncommon, buoyed by the system's nebula, and travelers are warned not to veer off the standard space lanes during transit of the system. Boom. Okay. Jade, you got any thoughts on this piece with Nyx? Anything you want to share from the world of astronomy?
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with the star itself. So, so just for reference, our sun is a G-class main sequence star, and it's around. I won't do the Kelvin. I'll do Fahrenheit, 10,000 Fahrenheit. Right. Any F class main sequence star is going to be hotter, brighter, and slightly more massive and slightly larger in terms of the radius than the sun. They can be anywhere from 1.1 to 1.6 and 1.7 solar radius and solar mass, or sorry, solar mass and solar radius, respectively. As far as luminosity, that can vary from 1.6 to 7.2 solar luminosity, right? So we're talking brighter, hotter, and slightly larger. The really interesting thing about that was where they started talking about it being situated, the whole system being situated in a dark nebula. So what a dark nebula is, it's a type of interstellar cloud. It's a molecular cloud. It's so dense that it obscures the visible wavelengths of light from objects behind it. And so you wouldn't see like background stars. And the extinction of light is mainly because of the size, the particle size of the dust grains, right? And what I study is dust. And so, at those wavelengths, the dust absorbs the light. And so that is why I think it's called Nyx, because as we said, the goddess of the night, and this would be a system that would be in a place that obscures light from outside the star system. I assume that's what they're saying. Now, I won't get into how realistic that is, because this is a space game and it's a sci-fi game.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I would expect to see as far as the skybox for Nyx. I wouldn't expect to see a whole lot because based on that lore. But as we saw with Pyro, they can retcon stuff. So we'll see what they do.
Right.
I mean, we can see some of the skybox here well, that's a screenshot on Star Map, but
That's not going to be the skybox.
That's not going to be.
Yeah.
No, that's just for the star map, because that's the same for every system that you see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fastcart, there was something here I thought you might find of interest, and that was them talking about trade lanes. Nix is a big system. I think on one of our tweets we put out, I got to go back and read the tweet. Let me read the tweet, because somebody actually commented about it because they said that they had no idea. You all forgive me. I there's so much information in my brain regarding these shows that I can't even remember what I tweet myself. Okay, system check. Stanton is 5 AU, Pyro's 13 AU, Nix is 35 AU. We're talking a big system, really, really big. And they're talking about the importance of staying within the trade lanes or travel lanes because of some of the dangers of traveling through here. And obviously, if you stay in trade lanes or travel lanes, that also makes you more susceptible to piracy because the pirates know where you're at. Does Nix sound like one of those systems that you would dare go through? Because it sounds like there's some lucrative stuff going on here in relation to the Synth World project.
I would take my friends with me as a fleet. I would not go on my own unless I'm, taking something really fast or something like a MSO or something. But not with my BMM by myself.
Okay, not with your baby, huh? Okay.
No, not with my baby. No.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. We did this last week on the show when we did Pyro. We are going to take a look at the video from lore makers regarding Nix. And then when we come back, we're going to have a little conversation about what we heard. We're going to talk about each one of the planets. And then we are going to talk about what we know 100% sure about, which is Levski, because we've had Levski before and we know CIG gave us a taste of what that's like. So let's take a quick look at that and get you something to drink. It's about a 15-minute video, so enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is where a member of the CIG lore team takes you through the sort of science, history, character, flavor, whatever you want to call it, for one of the many, many systems that will appear in the Star Citizen Squadron 42 universe. Again, I'd like to thank all of our subscribers for helping us provide that little extra money every month to do content like this. And let's get started. I should probably introduce myself. My name is Dave Haddock. I am the lead writer. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about Nix. You've probably seen it mentioned a lot in some of the jump points and in some of the ATVs, behind the scenes stuff, and we'll get to why you might know it in a little bit. But to start off, we'll just start here in our wonderfully beautiful star map here. We're in the Sol system, so let's go find Nix. All right. So, bye-bye Earth. And Nix, here we go. So we'll start out a bit wider just to kind of show you where it is situated. So here you have Nix. Basically, it's kind of in a nice little confluence of jump points here. You have Odin and Bremen and Toheel and Kastra and Pyro. And but Nix is an unclaimed system, so that means that basically for whatever reason the UEE or whatever governing body decided, in this case it was the UEE, decided that it wasn't worth basically incorporating into the Empire properly. Sometimes that means it's, people call it outlaw systems, stuff like that, but we try to stick with unclaimed just because there are various reasons, and we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, so jumping in, You'll notice it's a very kind of simple system. 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and a star. Very exciting stuff. So the star is a F-type main sequence star. Basically, none of the planets here are inhabitable, to get that out of the way. That's part of the reason why the UEE decided not to basically incorporate it into the Empire. It was discovered in 2582 by Carla Larry, and basically the idea was that surveyors basically showed up there and took a look at the system itself and decided that it just basically wasn't worth the money that it would cost. But there were resources there, so they were worth the money to come in and take, but the system itself wasn't worth it. So a little backstory about the name itself. Nyx is named as the Greek goddess of darkness, night, and the idea being early on that there was this sort of that there was poor visibility in the system, that it was basically kind of difficult to navigate around, which made it kind of ideal for more nefarious types to hide in and around. The other reason actually is because I was a fan of Clive Barker's Lord of Illusions, and I like the name. So we'll go through the planets now, and Nyx 1 is basically, it's a coreless kind of rocky terrestrial planet. When they first took over the system, basically this was sort of earmarked for a lot of potential resources, and over the course of centuries they basically just strip mined a lot of it. And while it means that there's basically no large scale resources that would justify a major company coming and taking it in, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily depleted, but just at a certain point it's just not worth it to set up a facility there, basically. So I'll give you a bit of context about the system when it was discovered historically. So it was 2582, as I mentioned earlier before. So this is 40 years after Ivar Messer has ascended to, has basically established the Imperator rank, named himself thus, and established the United Empire of Earth. So as far as the universe goes, this is still sort of, I guess what you call, I mean, the Messer era is reputedly known as like one of the worst, darkest eras of human history. But at this point it was still early on. So this is between the First and the Second Tavaran War. So right now it's sort of at its best, if you could call it that. People think that he's honestly protecting them. So the public have not been as downtrodden, but he's doing that thing where he's a very smart, savvy dude. So he's been basically kind of still coalescing his power and subverting, sort of reorganizing control to get himself more and more power. But again, because people think that he's doing a good job, they're kind of okay with any changes and stuff like that. And they're still obviously came off the very devastating Tavaran War. So Carla Larry founds the system, pops it over to the UEE, and basically they come and take a look and decide it's not really worth spending the money, so they left it alone. Nyx 1 was the one who obviously got mined a lot because there was a lot to take, and Nyx 2 is basically, it's an uninhabitable kind of smog planet. I can't remember the actual designation of it. Yeah, smog planet, there we go. So the technology, the sort of idea we were running with is like, it was sort of like Venus, like very high pressure kind of sulfuric acid type thing, so very, very lethal, and the technology didn't quite exist to be able to terraform that. So, we have a couple of those that scattered throughout the universe that basically seemed like they couldn't be terraformed, and then later on maybe technological advances pushed terraforming technology, so they were able to do it. So it's possible that maybe in the future something might be developed that would let them take a second look at Nyx 2 and try to terraform it, but in the meantime it's just basically uninhabitable and very, very lethal. And so we'll just go through the planets real quick. So Nyx 3 is an ice giant, basically situated all the way over here, and that's pretty much it. It's pretty much an ice planet. Nothing really can inhabit it. Can't really do much with it as of yet. So the other and probably the most important aspect of this system are these asteroid belts. You have 2. There's this one between Nyx 2 and Nyx 3 called the Glacium Ring, and then you have the Keeger Belt, which is it's sort of like the border, kind of encircles the entire thing. So it's a much less dense, but the glacium ring is the one we want to kind of focus on, because this is much more dense and kind of is where our main point of interest is in this system. So again, obviously asteroid mining is a very, very big thing of what we're trying to do. So the idea was that there was basically this company called Planet Services that discovered a planetoid-sized asteroid located in here and decided, hey, you know, we're going to roll the dice. And apparently it was very, you know, the idea was that it was very difficult to get, because it was so dense, very difficult to get large ships in here. So it was a tricky thing, but they were undeterred and decided that they were going to try and do it anyway and set up this massive facility on a planetoid. And basically we're in operation for a handful of years, but ultimately decided that it wasn't worth the cost to try and get stuff in and out of there and ships and stuff like that. So they basically abandoned it. So after that, basically the system was pretty much useless. Like there was nothing really, nothing going on here. So flash forward to much later, and we have basically a group of refugees who want to get out of the UEE. So the Messers have gone dark side, to use the parlance of our times, and we're in sort of like the Corson Messer, who's the 5th Messer era, and so this is like the very dark, sociopathic, like vicious despot type ruler. So there was this small group of people who basically said, we're done. We can't in any good conscience live in this type of government environment, whatever you want to call it. And so they're like, we're out, we're done. So they set off to try and find and establish their own kind of community. And so sure enough, they come across the Nix system, and they go to the old facility that was formerly run by QV Planet Services on this planetoid that they basically just walked away from. It was cheaper basically to just leave it. And so they basically showed up there and took it over, got it back up and running again so it was habitable, and decided that this was where they were going to build their own egalitarian community that represented everything that the Messer regime was taking away. So, you know, it's about community, it's about camaraderie, and, you know, people working together and overcoming problems and stuff like that. So that became the landing zone that is known as Levski. So basically, you have an independent government that is trying to be a truly egalitarian community, and that's what they've been doing. So they basically started collecting people, accepting refugees from coming in from the UAE who are also kind of sick and tired of living under the Mesher regime, and we're really trying to make a go of being a self-sustaining, independent government. Now, in time, obviously the Messers fell. The people eventually rose up and overthrew them, but Levski still maintained. So they are still trying to kind of keep their government going. And while they probably aren't as ideologically opposed to the current UEE regime, I think they still view it as like big government, you know, serving corporate interests, stuff like that. So they're still doing what they can to try and maintain this ideal that they've been pursuing. And but there's sort of a trick to it. So the catch with Levski, and we'll kind of jump behind the scenes for a second. I mean, one of the things, as we were saying earlier, like this was meant to be an unclaimed system. And originally in internal discussions within the company, there was these sort of, there was UEE systems, and then they were called pirate systems or outlaw systems and stuff like that. And so it felt like there was only just to give flavor within the outlaw systems. The idea was that basically we wanted to switch it up a little bit. So not every outlaw system should be a hive of scum and villainy type thing. So so Levski sort of, that's how Levski kind of came about as an original concept, was how can we do something that's not a UEE thing, that's a outlaw organization that's not necessarily criminal. So hence the idea of this sort of independent government came about. So but the fun thing was, because it was still an unclaimed system, it still had to have sort of serve that sort of criminal element thing. If you can come here and stuff like that. So how do we strike that balance? So the idea was basically, because they had this sort of open arms policy of, we'll take anybody, everyone is worthwhile and deserves to have a chance at peace and happiness and stuff like that. It's a really great idea and a really beautiful thing to pursue, but at the same time, there were people the more nefarious people in the universe who viewed that as basically the vulnerability of the weak. So criminals started taking advantage of the fact that they had this place that they could go to that would just sort of unconditionally accept them and stuff like that. And so what you have is now Levski is in a sense threatened by a growing number of criminals who are just using their sort of good nature against them as a hideout, basically. So you get to see this very interesting dynamic, and it's kind of one of the things that I like most about this system or this location is that there's this sort of sad tragedy to it, because you can see them trying to hold on to this ideal of community and stuff like that, but when you have people within that community who aren't on the same page and don't share your ideology, you get a nice conflict going on. So I think that's what gives this place a very unique flavor to it, because you have this sort of criminal element that's just underneath the current of these people who are really trying to do good, and them sort of at battle, and what does it take for the good people to start to shift their ideals to block out the people that they think are causing problems for the location. So yeah, that's basically Levski in a nutshell. Lots of idealistic, egalitarian people who are basically just trying to do their best in the universe, and you have a group of people who are trying to, basically self-serving, do crime, whatever they do, and the sort of juxtaposition between the two. So yeah, that's it. That's for this episode of Lore Makers. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, all of this information, or a lot of this information, you can find on our star map. If you go to the robertspaceindustries.com website, you can see for yourself and go for a wander around our universe. Thanks, and see you next time.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.
Okay, that was the piece on Nyx. I find it interesting, fastcart. I would be just a fly on the wall to sit and listen to the narrative team, the lore team, have to map out all this stuff, because it's one thing to have a bunch of systems. Let's just say 20 systems, right? And you want to create these different backgrounds, cultures, dynamics, politics, but then there also has to be a thread that interweaves and connects some of this stuff too. You just can't say, well, this is UEE over here and this is independent, and then there's no story between the two. And I love the fact that they had a whole backstory as to why these people left the UEE to go to Nyx. And I'm sure there's the same thing in relation to other systems too, but then there's also, you're leaving one problem, but you also end up getting another problem, right? They talk about this whole dynamic of trying to strike balance. Any thoughts, anything that you picked up from this whole thing with the Lore Maker's Guide?
Well, Nick one, they say it was primarily mined out, but I'm guessing there'll be players will be able to mine something there for Nick one. Next two, they said uninhabitable terraform target. Maybe during the when the game launches, or a few after the game launches, it'll be some kind of player initiative to have a terraformed or something in order to make it inhabitable, or maybe there'd be some kind of storyline involving that. They said next three was ice and not much there. I mean, maybe it'll be like Hoth. We'll see. I'm not really familiar with the ice giant. How does that work in astronomy? But I guess we'll see.
I'll
You
tell
want
you
me
what,
to
we've got.
answer that?
Well, wait. Well, let's go back since Fastcart started going down the list already. Let's do the list, and then Jade, yeah, absolutely. When we get to Nick's 3, we can talk about it. Let's
All
go.
right.
Let's go back to Nick's 1 first, because we will talk about those. Okay.
Yeah.
And go ahead. We're gonna say FC.
No. You can go ahead.
Okay. Nick's 1, again, they said this is the first planet in the Nick system that is coreless. We've talked about coreless worlds before. Heat swept world that, excuse me, was long ago picked clean by value of its valuable minerals. Soon after the system was discovered, a routine survey revealed the presence of high-grade metals beneath the planet's surface. Once word got out, the planet briefly became the focus of numerous mining operations. Within 50 years, the planet was almost nearly entirely stripped of its resources. Its material wealth shipped off to Killian to help supply the Empire's growing war efforts. By 2630, Nick's 1 had been mostly abandoned, with little evidence of human habitation remaining. Jade, let me ask you, because
Sure.
I'm always dealing with this issue of CIG telling us about a system. You know, we always think we hear about a system, and those of us who are into mining and industry, first thing we say is, I'm going to get on my ship and blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But a lot of these descriptions are like, yeah, when you get there, the place is stripped. There's nothing there. So, you know, how do you see this? Because there has to be some form of gameplay there, you know?
Yes.
You know, what do you see is the balance in that, where they tell us that, hey, somebody's been here before, you know, been there, done that. But then at the same time, as gamers, we're supposed to be able to go there and do something, right?
So the description of Nick's 1 is interesting, and it's very nuanced, right? Because they say that, you know, it's been mined out by big corporations that don't really see a point in, you know, going after what's left. The main thing is there is stuff left, right? So that leaves it open for us as players to go in there. We're not able to set up huge, large-scale industrial mining operations, but we can go out there with our prospectors. We can go out there, you know, with a group of prospectors and moles, and there'll be something for it. But when they say that it's been mined out, they're talking about these huge corporations that, you know, literally there's a point at which it's no longer cost
financial
effective.
benefit for them, right?
Right, exactly. But it would be for us as individual players.
Very good. Good answer. Okay.
So wait, so what you're saying is a Rock DX will finally have a use?
only if you like it, you know. only if you like it. I don't know how many people like. Well, I mean, Meg have one? Yeah.
Well, you know what I'm loving? I'm loving these issues of things that we're not having to deal with right now in the games, which is atmosphere and climate of these places. You know, yeah, it's you go there, but can you even survive there? You know, do you have the correct equipment to survive there? Do you have the right gear to survive there? What are the risks? You know, last week, Jade, you were talking about radiation and things like that, right? Here we've got this situation with any orbital that is within a decent proximity of a star. There's always these heat issues that you're going to have to address. We wonder why we've got these big heat suits now. But I think it's going to be much bigger than that later on as we go deeper into these systems, right?
Yeah, and in Star Citizen lore, you know, what they call smog planets that are like Venus, like Nyx 2, those have been... they've been pretty much left alone because only the Xi'an are known to be able to, like, you know, handle them, right? So as humans, we can't even really survive there much, you know. A good example with Venus is the Russians sent probes to Venus, you know, decades ago, and when they landed, the pressure and the heat was so high that they only, you know, could transmit for like 15 minutes, 900 degrees Fahrenheit, raining sulfuric acid. Not a nice place to live.
Nope. And agreed. I know I was thinking about when Fastcart said, "Oh, maybe we could go there and terraform." I'm like, I don't know. This may not be the one to pick. This may not be the one, you know.
That might set up a thing where
it's 900 years in the future.
But that's the state of the universe in 900 years in the future. That humans, there's still things that humans cannot easily do. But maybe our Xi'an friends might help us out with it. You know?
And again, to your point, Fastcart, we know we're always talking about what are the other things that can be done, because we're making assumptions of things that, you know, we think, oh, I'm going to go there and do blah, 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 blah. But, you know, there may be other things to get introduced into the game, other types of mining that we haven't gotten into yet. You know, we haven't even gotten into gaseous mining and things of that nature yet. So there's possibilities. You know, again, I just find it fascinating because Jade has mentioned this before too, that the reality of space is that there's more nothing than there is something, right? And so if we try to we can't make every planet this place with a landing zone, where there's buildings and housing and blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, the game cannot be so barren that systems don't have any relevance, or that all you think about is, when I see the system, I'm just going to fly through it because there's nothing there. We do want to have reasons, if it's nothing more than a commercial lane, right? Or maybe there's some observational reason for being there. Maybe there's some other things that CIG hasn't unveiled to us. But if you're going to create these systems with worlds that are half stripped, completely stripped, fully resourced, I'm just fascinated with what CIG puts up behind these. Jade, since you touched on this already, I'll read the description of Nyx 2.
Yes.
Smoggy, desolate world. Nyx 2 was once considered an edge case for terraforming. Thick clouds of acid and carbon dioxide surround the world, and the planet is technically teetering at the inner edge of the system's green band. Nevertheless, a serious study was conducted as to whether or not it could be made habitable. The end result was it could, but it would take considerable effort to provide little in the way of returns. EVA on the planet itself is lethal. Even if explorers are protected from the corrosive elements, they will be unable to function in the high pressure atmosphere. So, I'm thinking about like deep sea stuff, right? In the right vehicle, we can go into deep sea areas. And maybe later on CIG will create some vehicle that can take you there, but you can't go around in a suit per se. Who knows what they'll do with Nyx, but I'm curious as to whether or not there's something.
What would be interesting? It could be inhospitable to humans, but maybe there's some creatures or something already living there.
And that's what Jay was saying about the Xi'an. She was referencing the Xi'an in relation to that, or some tech.
No, I mean like
indigenous or some other creature that they'll come up with in the game.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe they'll come up with some exotic thing that you can buy, and you and your exotic Banu merchantman have the suit that allows you to go down there. I don't know.
Yeah, materials. Yeah.
We'll see. All right, let's go ahead and jump on to Nyx 3. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
One real quick thing. So, an interesting thing about Venus is that there's a level in its atmosphere which it has the same atmospheric pressure as the Earth and roughly the same temperature, right? So like literally you'd be able to stand there without a spacesuit. You'd still have to have a helmet and oxygen, but you would be all right. So a planet like this, they might have it where, we do have these platforms in the atmosphere of Crusader. It's possible that, they might put something like that there at a certain layer where, you're not going to be crushed by the atmosphere. Still not going to be a great place to live, but we do have a precedent for that in the game right now.
It's room for gameplay, something that could come out of that. You're right. Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about Nyx 3. Nyx 3, the final planet in the Nyx system, located far from the sun's light, is an ice giant, a massive ball of frozen water and ammonia vapor. That always sounds good. Nyx 3 has only seen minimal resource extraction owing to the hazardous work conditions in the planet's dangerous atmosphere. Jade, let me touch on something, and then I want you to elaborate, please. Fastcart said it might be like Hoth. Well, nope. I was going to say, could you maybe distinguish?
I stand corrected.
Well, I do want her to, because I think a lot of people will feel that Fastcart when we hear that. But I do want to think, and I mean beyond the whole ammonia vapor thing.
Yeah.
When a planet is this far out, we're talking about severe cold. We're not talking about Antarctic level. I can put on
when you said ice giant, that's what I thought. But
but in Empire Strikes Back, these jokers' faces were exposed. They had on a big heavy coat. I don't think that's going to be this world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Go ahead, Jade.
Right.
And the emphasis here is not on the ice; it's on the giant, right? So. An ice giant is a planet that's similar to like a gas giant, but gas giants are mostly made up of hydrogen and helium. So in astrophysics, the term ice refers to volatile chemical compounds with freezing points above 100 K. And so oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, ammonia, that's what makes up atmospheres of like ice giants, water vapor, that methane, things like that, right? So like in our solar system, we have Neptune and Uranus. Those are ice giants. So don't think Hoth, think, Neptune.
Yeah. Scary. In act, it's kind of
I
funny.
never thought of those as ice giants, but okay.
Isn't this image somewhat like what Neptune looks like?
Yeah. It's
A little bit.
It's got that blue,
Yeah.
It's almost like they looked at the Voyager 2 image of Neptune taken in 1989, and
Did
we're
a
like,
little
yeah, let's
spin.
do that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, those are the 3 planets that we focused on, but there are other things in the Nix system that we want to talk about. We're going to talk about the least of these, then moving to the greater of these. One of them being the Keeger Belt. I'm sorry. Again, guys, I'm sorry. The star map is out of order. It is not working. You can't click on things to zoom in and get the detail. But I did find this one particular image of it. And you'll notice, if you guys can see, there's a very thin strip going through here. In the video we watched, they referenced it, that it's a smaller asteroid belt. It is on the furthest extremes of the system. They don't say very much about it. The Keeger Belt is an asteroid belt in the unreleased Nix system. That's it. That's the description. So, we don't know. Again, gameplay, will they put something out here? We're going to talk about this a little bit later as to what other things that we don't hear about very much. And Jade and I were talking before the show that there's a lot of stuff about Nix there's a lot of stuff about Nix that a lot of people don't know about because, as you guys know, they removed Delamar from the game. And so for the last few years, nobody's been really talking about Delamar and Levski. But even more, people have not talked about Nix because, as we mentioned earlier, the opening video was 7 years ago. There was a lot of conversation about Nix back then, but over the years, it's kind of dwindled. So that's why we're going to kind of talk to you guys about these belts and other things in relation to why you may want to go to this system, even though the impression that was given in the Lore Makers video was that, well, there's not that much there. But then they're like, well, for now, they kind of implied for now. So let's talk about that. Jay, do you want to say anything about the Keeger Belt before we go on and start talking about the glacier?
Yes. Yeah. So I believe the Keeger Belt may be the closest equivalent to the Aaron Halo in Stanton that we have in Stanton. So or in solar system terms, our asteroid belt, or I think they call it the Herschel belt in Star Citizen lore. So, it's going to be a belt of asteroids that you can mine of different types probably, but I don't know because I don't work for CIG. But I'm assuming because, they don't put things on the map if there's no reason for them, right? And we already have precedent with the Aaron Halo.
Yeah.
So that's what this seems to be like to me. Yeah.
I wonder whether or not this is going to kind of go along that lines of, the Keeger Belt's a smaller belt, it's further out, right? But it's also further out from those who reside in the system, which means that if I come in from another system, maybe it's a little bit safer to mine out here versus if I go in toward the Glacian, where we know there's a lot more activity. There are also people with greater interest in that area and maybe a little more dangerous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe they're giving you some alternatives here. You don't, not just that one belt, but those of you who if you want to do it out here on the periphery, that's fine. You're way out there, but maybe there's not as much resource, but you may be a little safer out here than if you're going deeper into the system. Possibly.
Yeah, and as they talked about recently about the distribution of resources, you probably see them, making more lucrative resources being out at that place where it's a little bit less safe, right? Because it's that whole risk versus reward thing that Chris Roberts likes to talk about.
Yeah. Trey, I am keeping up with what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. They have been modifying things, and as the Galactopedia has been coming out, they have been tweaking and refining. Just so you guys will know, the information that we're reading is from the website, from the RSI website. This is their description of Nix, but we do want to keep this in mind. This stuff was written a long time ago, and we always have to say things change. But they do give you an idea of the direction that they're going in relation to the lore, as well as what they're building out in these systems. Let's go ahead and talk about the Glacian, because that one is the ring. And they showed this a little bit. There's a big description here I'm going to read for you guys. The Glacian ring asteroid belt in Delamar. The dense asteroid belt circles Nix's star at roughly 12 AU. While the asteroid field has seen some mining, it is mostly known as a very good place to avoid unwanted attention. An unknown number of small settlements have been established on asteroids in the area and are home to a variety of fringe colonists seeking anything from the life outside of the UEE to a platform from which to operate outside the law. Outlaw raids in the system, typically conducted against the trans-synth world shipping lanes, are believed to operate out of the larger bases in the field. The highlight of these settlements is Delamar, the largest of the asteroids. The size of a small planetoid, Delamar is hidden deep in the Glacium Ring, home to an old mining facility that was abandoned by the original prospectors when they couldn't turn a profit. The People's Alliance moved in and dubbed it Levski, after the old Earth revolutionary dissenters of the UEE's Messer era. The People's Alliance transformed Delamar into a hotbed for political radicals and anti-UEE sentiment. While the People's Alliance has taken on a more passive role in recent history, Levski still attracts a bunch of politically minded groups that are similar enough to live together, but different enough in their goals so that they never get anything accomplished. Over the years, a criminal element has also taken up residence here, even though the political activists have tried to suppress it, feeling that criminals undermine their message about taking a stand against the corruption and criminality in the UEE, while also making their community a target for government raids. So let's hit the Glacium Belt first, then let's talk about Delamar, and then we can talk about Levski a little bit. fastcart, dense asteroid belt, a lot of folks living there. Any thoughts about that Glacium? Are you familiar with the Glacium Belt, or is it the first time you're reading about it?
I probably read about it a long time ago, but refreshing my memory. I think I'm going to be the first to pronounce it Delamere instead of Delamar because of Scooter, because, you know, Deva. But we'll see if that catches on. I hope it catches on. But as far as many people living there, I'm looking forward to seeing them in game when it comes up. So that'll be interesting. Like, we'll get more missions, hopefully more missions, and more NPCs to interact with.
Yeah. There's a designation too, and Jade, I'll jump to you in a second here. They talked about the politics and also designating that in the beginning, CIG was looking at either you were UEE or you were considered outlaw, right? But then they said they didn't want that. I guess the connotation of outlaw is more of the fact that you're outside of the UEE law, not necessarily criminality. Right. So they also wanted to come up with this idea of independent, right? Those who are independent of UEE, who are trying to create their own system of living, where they live, so on and so forth. So I'm mentioning that fastcart because a lot of people, there's this feeling of once you're outside of the UEE that there are no other laws. And the reality is that there will be places that will have their own laws. And like right now, if you go into the Moby Glass, they'll tell you, for example, when you're in Stanton, they'll tell you how each system or each planet you go there are certain things that are illegal, things you can and cannot do. We want to make sure people know that when they go into these other systems, it doesn't mean that necessarily it's lawless, right?
Right. In fact, when we still had Delamar, the laws were different. When you look in your Moby Glass, there were certain drugs that you could have there that weren't, like, if you wouldn't be able to have it Hurston, you know, without it being something that you get pulled over for.
Yeah. Do you think
I'm just looking forward to joining my brown coat brothers and sisters at Delamar?
Your who, brothers and sisters?
Brown coat.
Oh, you mean the brown? You're talking about the UE environment coat that was for sale at?
Talking about Firefly and Alliance and independent people.
Okay.
fastcart, you got to stop having these old man references. There are people who are just they're not
20
going to
years
go
old.
back. Yeah. There are people playing the game that are 20 years old. Okay, so anyway,
true.
All right. Okay, yeah. Again,
Theorem got it. Thank you.
Okay, Theorem got it. All right. That's one. Okay. So here's the other thing, Jade, you're just mentioning. I don't want to use Star Wars references, but there is something I do like about Star Wars. I like when you go to a different system or different world, they have their own sort of policing, right? And we didn't see that necessarily at Delamar at the time. It was still in its early stages. Yeah. But I would love to see that when you arrive at these places, that there is some type of policing, if that makes sense. You know, like for example, some places when you're flying in, like right now, the cops will stop you, right? They scan you or something, you know. I'd love to see some level of conflict like that. But how do you think in Delamar there will be policing?
Well, I'll tell you what there was when we still had it in the game,
Okay.
and then I'll speculate.
Okay.
When we still had it in the game, if you landed and you had violated, like, you murdered somebody, there were guards in the hangars.
Oh
Yeah, you'd see them. They had like long dreadlocks,
Mhm.
right? And they'd have a sidearm, and they would start coming after you, right?
I forgot
So
about that.
because you violated one of the main rules of the People's Alliance, which is no fighting and definitely no murders.
Yeah.
And so people have to look at this as it's not pyro, right? This is a place that has a functioning government. They have their own laws. No, they're not the UEE, but the UEE is not the only game in town when it comes to human colonies or human space. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And this is the only, as far as I know so far, only independent human colony outside of the UEE. One of the reasons that they are so opposed to fighting is because they don't want their government overthrown. They don't want the advocacy coming in, to basically take them over and gentrify them. So it's a very touchy thing, and that's why they have to have security. And if you remember, when you get off your ship, when you take the elevator down, you go through customs, right? Just like you do in the Stanton system. So that doesn't say scream outlaw, right? That's a functioning government. Yeah.
And we're going to talk about those of you who remember Levski. Some of this will be nostalgic, but there are a lot of you who maybe never saw Levski, never went when we had Delamar. I hate to say this, Jade, I've almost forgotten where Delamar was. It was in orbit of Crusader, right? It was further out. Where was it?
Okay, so when they originally put it in 3.0, it was just basically like another moon of Crusader,
Right.
but they put it way out, right? But then when we got Hurston and we started getting planets, then they moved it into its own planetary orbit around Stanton, around the star.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So what you guys are looking at now is some video footage. This is a video tour of Levski. For those of you who've never seen it, Jade gave me a video, which I'm going to try to drop in, and hopefully this works. I haven't seen this, so I don't know what Jade, what is the video itself? Is that somebody like a walkthrough of it while he's talking? Is that what we're going to see?
Yeah. So this video is a visit to our favorite, entry, descent, and landing air traffic control person, Eslin Mackin, I believe. And if you weren't around back then, when you'd fly into Levski, you'd get contacted on your ship's screen. You'd have this guy come on. He kind of looked like he was high, and he would greet you and say, "Hey, welcome to Levski. I got a hangar right here for you." And you'd land, right? And a lot of people thought that was a cutscene, but it wasn't, because this is Star Citizen, right? It can't be a cutscene. That guy actually existed, and you could actually go visit him and watch him as he, contacted ships.
Let's see if we can take a look at this video. I'm going to try to pop it in here.
Yeah, you may have to fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
But I think it's now showing, visiting Eslin. There he is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. He was up there.
Yeah, you can watch him work.
That's right.
And you could get up there, too. There was a way to glitch up there. But
Back in the day, when
Back in
glitching was the thing.
And if you went in front of where the camera was placed, you'd appear on somebody's screen when he, contacted
Oh,
them.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. It's all. What do they call that? Systemic or diegetic? I'm trying to remember the word they use, but yeah.
I know what you're talking about. I forgot the word.
Yeah.
When you pop in on someone's photograph unintended.
Right.
What the heck?
That's him trying to glitch through to where he's at.
Okay. It looks weird.
I'm going to try to move it up a little bit here. Nope. There's a lot of glitching here. All right, well, I'm going to...
It's going to be a little bit,
A little bit further ahead?
bit after this. Yep. there is.
Oh, you mean photo bombing? Is that the word you're looking for? Photo bombing?
No, it's the word CIG uses for things that, because they have this system and this system, then this is the result. Sort of.
That was him there,
It's
right?
like not necessarily intended, but it's good that it's there because these systems exist, sort of thing. Diegetic, yeah, I was right.
That was it right there, right?
Yeah, it's diegetic. Yeah, that was it.
Okay,
right
cool.
there.
All right. So
And yeah,
very cool. Let's see if I can go back to this. And we're gonna let you guys hear some of the dialogue because you could hear him talking just barely in that video. But we're gonna let you guys hear it here.
So since you're visiting, there are a couple of rules you're going to have to follow. First, never say anyone else's ideas are stupid. I mean, who are any of us to say what's stupid? You know, we're all entitled to our own thoughts. Two, don't try and rip anyone off. Right? You would figure that wouldn't have to be a rule, but there you go. Three, don't try and push your UEE agenda on us. You know, talking is one thing, plotting is another. Four, no fighting.
Okay, so those were the rules if you came in, and then there's
I like how the most important rule was last. Seems like no fighting.
no fighting.
yeah.
And Jay,
Yeah,
the second one, what's the second one now that we're gonna hear?
The second one sort of tells you about like what their greater view of their place in the universe is.
Okay.
In terms of what they ask us all to do.
Okay, let's hear that.
That's simple. And last, try and spend a bit of time thinking about how you're going to make the verse a better place. You know, that one was my favorite. It's at the heart of what makes Levski so great. Now, I know all of this may seem a bit weird to you, but it's how we like to live. So I'd appreciate you respecting us.
Okay. Oh wow, Starjump Ender.
Hey, thanks, Starjump.
Thank
Ender.
you
Welcome,
so
Raiders.
much. Welcome, Raiders. We appreciate you guys being here. Hope you guys had a awesome stream for a Sunday. Thank you, Ender. Hope you're doing good, buddy. I know you have been diligently pushing for charity for St. Jude this year. We got to get on the wagon with you. I'm just running behind, but we're going to get behind you on that. So thank you.
Happy to be here.
Chia,
Thank you for the follow.
thank you for that follow. Okay, so yeah, what we're looking at right now, those of you who remember going into Levski, Levski is a former mining facility built into the asteroid Delamar in the Nix system and now home to the People's Alliance of Levski. This mining facility, as we mentioned, was abandoned for years before UEE refugees took up their residence. Dedicated to creating their egalitarian society, this group of activists wanted to build the kind of community that the Messers had taken away. Levski has evolved into a self-sustaining port of political activists and those wishing to escape the eye of the Empire. Jay, we didn't talk about this too, about the Glacian Belt. Another issue about that is where some of the more criminal element also try to hide out as well, right?
Yep, exactly. And I expect that there will be friction between them. I'm not sure if I can talk about that group yet because we haven't got
we're
there
coming
yet.
up to them.
We're gonna get to the People's Alliance are not the only people who live in Nix.
Yep.
And just like you have different factions in Pyro, you're gonna have different factions in Nix.
Yeah. And it's very easy to think that only because we had Levski, right? And all we ever
Right.
heard about was the People's, that's it. So
Yep.
naturally we just think, oh, they're the only ones that reside there, but you're absolutely right. Ascart, how's your memory of Levski? Do you remember Levski at all?
I remember that statue. That's about it.
Okay,
that
just the
statue that
statue.
you passed like a minute ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's
Do you know what this statue is?
Well, we're going to get to Tanaka.
Okay.
Let's go through the section here on the
Okay.
businesses, if you guys, if that's okay. When you navigated through here, you would go to, there's some elevators when you first came in. Well, let's go back. Jade, you talked about once you get off the elevators, you come through customs. CIG would later on put in Teach's ship shop, where you could, was it Oh wow, Reload. Thank you so much
Reload,
for those
thank you.
subs. 5 subs. Y'all give a shout out to Reload, the guy.
Thank you,
out there.
Reload.
Thank you,
For the subscription.
Thank you. Thanks, Whammer. Teach's ship shop. I don't remember, Jay. Was it rental or purchase there?
Purchased because we didn't have ship rentals
At
in
the
the game.
time, right?
at the time. And back to customs, there was a really cool trick, I don't know, exploit, whatever. When you go through customs, you could see that there were guns that they had like confiscated, and you could jump over the thing and grab, so you could get free guns if you went to Levski for a while until they like fixed it. But back to Teach's. Teach's was the very first ship dealer in the game, I believe. This is before we had Hurston, so there was no new deal. So, and it was a remarkable thing because there were people, a lot of naysayers that said, well, they'll never have ships available for sale in game because, they make money from selling them. And so when we got Teach's Ship Shop, that basically, confirmed that narrative was not true, that ships would be earnable in game for AUEC and eventually UEC.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember going, oh boy, what a glitchy space that was back in the day when you wanted to teach it. Some days it worked fine. Other days the big red ball would be sitting there greeting you when you came down where some item was supposed to be. But go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the cool things about Teach's too was that the ships that they made available in there made sense for where you were.
That's where I was ready to go. The Cuddy Black was there. That's what I was going to go to. Yep. No, that was it. Yeah. That was one of the places where you could actually rent a Yellowjack or a Dragonfly.
And
you
a
could
prospector.
get the prospector there. You could get the Cutlass Black there. And was an Aurora there too? There was something else.
There was an Aurora. MR.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they had a bunch of Auroras. They had, I think everything except for the LX was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was not this the big ships with a lot of money, right? These are ships that were practical to people who would have been in that system, and also the money, right, to be able to buy those ships. So it was a unique place. Teach's was very cool. So there was that when you first came in, there was an elevator that took you down to Teach's. Come back up, you go through customs, and you would go into this open lobby area where you see these elevators here, and you could look out into the mining area that was right outside the window here.
Affectionately called the borehole.
The borehole. This was a very cool thing back in the day. Chris Roberts was very proud to show this off, where he had a freelancer fly outside that window while on the elevator, and they showed us that the person in the elevator could see the ship, and the person in the ship could see the person in the elevator. And it was cool, because it definitely showed that this was not a loading screen. Yeah, well, it showed it wasn't a loading screen, right? That was the thing that it really proved at the time, because very easy to go into an elevator, close the doors, you don't know what's going on around you. The elevator was also much slower back then. Now it moves with lightning speed, and even when it was slow, it was like 8 frames a second.
Yeah, can you imagine how many people that elevator would kill now if it were in game? It would kill so many people.
Oh, no. Well,
it's look at the ones at Grimhex, because it's the same one. Different colors.
It is. So now we're going into the business district here on the map here, and we're going to go to several shops there. There was Cordy's, which was the armory place, right?
Yeah, Cordry's was the armor store.
Right. Then we had Conscientious Objects, which was weapons, correct?
Yep. Conscientious Objects, like for conscientious objectors.
And we had a Dumpers Depot there, and there was also the hospital, which at the time was not functioning. The doors were always closed, and they had the little broken neon sign over it, but the hospital wasn't operating when they first put it in. And then of course there was Cafe Moussain, which we got a taste of, one of our first missions being done there. There was an interesting navigation to walking through this place too. It was not easy to navigate. It took you several walks to know where things were. We're looking at the upper level right now, but there was a lower level too, right, Jade, where there were some shops and shopkeepers and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lower level where you could get, you could buy like that UE environment coat. I don't know if it was the UE environment coat, but it was the brown coat fast coat. That's what it was.
The trench, the trench coat, yeah.
Yeah, the trench coat. You could buy that there. You could buy boots and stuff like that, but it wasn't like a shop, like a closed shop. These are little stalls, and there was a place that had fish, but you couldn't buy them.
Right.
But I guess in the future you'd be able to.
There was a florist there. There was a place like a food stand where you could get food. It's like a little minis, like you said, like a little flea market kind. That's what it was more like. I felt like a flea market kind.
It was. It was like a free market or open market.
Yeah.
from the armor store you mentioned, I'm looking forward to getting some Beskar armor when it comes back into game.
Yeah. Okay.
No, but seriously, did you mention the statue, or did you?
We're gonna come back to we're gonna come back to
Okay.
this a little bit further down on our list here. Jade, I want to go back here in the video for a second because
Okay.
the walkthrough here is going so fast.
Yeah, we're about to see one of the other mission givers. Probably.
That's where I want to go back to. Was it Rudo who was here?
Nope.
No,
It was Miles Eckhart.
No. The one that was downstairs.
Recco Battaglia. She was the one.
Yeah, someone mentioned her in chat.
Yeah. And
Recco.
I think a lot of people liked her because, like we didn't have many good, and still don't really good mission givers that like give lawful missions or just ones that aren't, go kill somebody, right? And she was one of the ones that gave you those type of missions.
Right. Now she was in this room coming up. The other thing that was interesting about her character was that she had a cybernetic leg.
Yes.
Which was one of the first times that we saw that being implemented. Now this must be an earlier video because she's not here, or either it was bugged out. But normally when you come in here, she would be standing at the console. She would even turn and look at you if you came into the room, which was an interesting piece.
Yeah, she turned and face and talked to you, like whichever direction you were standing.
And I remember, I think it was around the verse back then instead of in IST or instead of Citizen, but they had an episode where they previewed or gave her a rundown of how they animated Recco's leg, and it was pretty cool. It looked awesome.
It was.
And as far as I know, she's one of the few people with a disability in the game outside of Twitch's eyes and stuff like that.
Well, and her hand.
Yeah, her hand too.
Which goes to the whole thing of I'm still waiting for a woman mission giver that doesn't have like cybernetic limbs.
Yeah.
Like this is a hard universe for us.
That's Rowena Dooley.
But we don't have.
We don't have her. She's not in the
we don't
game,
have
though.
a physical. So we don't know. Maybe she has a cybernetic limb too.
So I want to go here. This is where we start going down into what I call the depths of Levski. Because there was no gameplay per se set up here, but there was, obviously we see the potential. You really could go get lost down here. There was a whole, I guess it would be the understructure of what Levski was. A lot of machinery, obviously things for generating energy, all types of stuff was down here. Very cool, very spooky, but very cool. People down there working, there were NPCs down there. And I'm really curious to see, this is a long area. There's got to be some mission related, something that's going to go on down here. And I don't know what it could be.
Used to be able, when they had the Red Festival, those envelopes.
They'd be all down there.
Luminalia, this was the place to make bank.
Really? Nobody go down there either.
Nobody would be down here, so there'd be tons of them that you could pick up.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's right, because it was a very remote place. Because there was no, beyond that one room, there were no mission givers down here. People just, once you kind of explored it and you saw it, it's like, okay, been there, done that. But again, a lot of area here that obviously CIG is going to have some type of purpose for us when playing the game. And it looped around. That was the other thing. You could come at it from one side or the other. But there was a lot of territory down here that you could look at.
Shady Face says Recco, Miles Eckhart, and Wallace Clem were all based.
Wallace Clem is who I was trying to think of. That was the one I was thinking about when you went downstairs. Levski has a total of 5 floors, but only 2 of the floors were accessible. Delamar was temporarily placed as a stand-in for Crusader into the Stanton system with Alpha 3.0, but later it was removed in Alpha 3.12.1 as completion of Orison was nearing completion. And you guys will remember that. There was a trade-off of getting Delamar out. A lot of people thought that Levski Delamar was in the Stanton system because when they came into the game, it was there. Only to find out later that no, it is not a part of it, and it's going to be in another system. So
and there was an incident that happened here that a lot of community members participated in. So we can't talk about Levski without talking about the Great Airlift, which was based on a bug. This is sort of like a different type of Jumptown type thing, right? Where people couldn't get out of Levski the normal way through customs because there were rocks, basically like rock geometry stuck there. So in order to get out, they had to go down through that undercity, whatever you want to call it, tunnels. And then there was a way that you could get out into that borehole, and people were flying ships down there to airlift people that had, that were stuck at Levski because they were, spawning there. And so we all call it the Great Levski Airlift. And if you were there, it was cool. A lot of people made a lot of friends. It wasn't about killing like Jumptown. Right. It was about cooperating.
Was there a When you went down to that borehole, there was nothing to access through into the core of the thing, was there?
There was, yeah.
Was there a tunnel?
There was
that
a
would come
way.
out?
Yeah, there was like a way that you could come out through there.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah,
that's something I didn't know. Wow. Okay. All right. Fastcart was talking about Anthony Tanaka earlier. This is one of the things that was part of the lore here. To fully understand Levski, you must visit the hand-carved statue of Anthony Tanaka, the boy whose death became a rallying cry for the anti-Messer movement. While there are other sculptures of Tanaka in the UEE, none are as beautifully dark and defiant. That's from the Observer's Dark, 2945-0916.
Bless his heart.
So Jay, talk a little bit about that. It was the piece with Tanaka, because that's something that when you first came in, boom, it was right in front of you as soon as you came through customs.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was definitely the centerpiece of Levski as far as like what they're about and why they were there. So Anthony Tanaka, I'll just do a real short thing. He was a little boy that was working in a weapons factory, and they pushed him so hard basically that he died, right? And he became a symbol of everything that the anti-Messer movement was. And if you want to see a really in-depth video that explains Anthony Tanaka, his life, and the whole thing about this part of lore, Paul Shelley, Fist and Jawa have a video which really goes deep into the life and death of Anthony Tanaka. And the trigger warning, it involves child labor and abuse and stuff like that. But they have a really good conversation about Anthony Tanaka.
And people don't know why there's such tension with the UEE or the Messers at the very least, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people think of the UEE and they think of like the UFP, the United Federation of Planets. Everything is all rosy and great, but there is a dark history to the UEE that people aren't cool with, and there are people who still, because as we mentioned earlier in the lore, because of that history, they don't completely trust the UEE. It's kind of like we've been there before. We saw what happened, and they don't want to be in that system of government. But we said this earlier too. Every government has its challenges, right? And just like you can come out and try to do something noble, there's always those people who, my old pastor used to say, while good people are sleeping, the evil people are scheming, right? You're trying to do the right thing. There's always going to be these other people who see opportunity to take advantage, right? And so the folks at they're trying to do the right thing, but they've got their own issues, their own elements that are in this Nick system that we're going to have to see how that plays out. We're going to say FC?
I was going to say, instead of equating the UEE or the Messer regime with the United Federation planet, it would be better or more apt to equate them with the Mirror Universe equivalent, the United Empire planet from Star Trek, in my opinion.
Yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is one of the reasons why lore is so important, so that you guys will understand why things are the way they are in the game. It's very easy to jump into Star Citizen, and don't get me wrong, you can jump into Star Citizen for the action and the missions and stuff like that. But I think you'll get a much richer reward from it the more you start to understand as this game expands why things are the way they are. Jay was mentioning earlier about the Xi'an. Why are they capable to do something that humans can't do in the game? And if you understand the lore, you'll know how to approach them, because we know that CIG is going to make sure that there are reasons why you have to do certain things in the game. And if you don't know that lore, you may find yourself at a deficit. Fastcart with his Banu stuff, you know, he's got to learn, he's got to have to learn Banu, you know.
Well, I don't know about that. I'll learn a few words, but I don't want to start a flame or anything. But in this game, I don't think you want to skip the cutscene in this game, like you like some people do it in another game. This is one game you would not want to, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the reason, just wanted to clarify, the reason that Anthony Tanaka is dead was they shot him, right? Because he wouldn't work.
Right.
They worked him to death, and then they shot him when he said, I can't work anymore. So, yeah.
Which is crazy, right? Which is really crazy.
Oh, and Luciana's here.
Oh, hey, Luciana, good to see you. All right, so let's go ahead.
Luciana.
Let's go ahead and hit this last part here. Jade gave me this today, and it definitely good stuff because we've been trying to pull. Let me say this too. I said it in the text chat earlier, and some of you may not have seen it. One of the difficult pieces of doing things like this is there's so much information, but the information goes back so far that it's difficult to determine where CIG is with it. We know that Nyx is a thing. What we don't know is that the lore that we're reading, is it still relevant, or how much of it has changed, how much of it is tweaked, how much more of it has been expanded. And every once in a while, CIG will bring the narrative team on, and we get to ask them questions, and we get to get answers. And so this piece that's come up now is the narrative team during their Q&A, and the question is raised about Nyx. And we're going to play that for you guys so you can hear, because Jade, you talked about this earlier. Yes. People's Republic, they're not the only ones. They're not the only ones
nope.
in that system. Okay, let's take a listen.
So we all know the next system being added to the Star Citizen universe in the upcoming Alpha 4.0 is the Pyro system. But this question's about Nyx, which we had as a sort of homeless person sleeping on Stan's couch for a while there. We all know about Levski. But are there other surface settlements in the Nyx system, either on Delamar or the other planets of Nyx?
Yeah, there should be. In our recent lore makers, we do every quarter. So for a year, we go through our Ask a Dev and we answer a bunch of questions. And one of the ones from the recent one was about Nyx and about basically settlements outside of Delamar and Levski, and obviously there's going to be other places that we're going to want you to go in system. And one of the groups we talked about there was a group called the Moraine, which will have kind of homesteads and little outposts, maybe in different parts of the system that you'd be able to go visit, do missions at, and stuff like that. And as we dig further into that, I'm sure as teams put together cool outposts, we'll lore them up a little bit more and add our spin to them once we see what they look like. But yeah, there should absolutely be places outside of Levski that you'll be able to visit.
And that's like we talked about at the top of this Star Citizen Live episode, kind of that layering thing. And what we learned from developing Stanton is about what is the level of content that is appropriate. So like finding out we need these locations for players to visit and do things at. And so even though in the lore write-ups right now, we've only called out 1 or 2 locations, that was basically just that first light coating, the undercoat of narrative. And as the great eye of development turns toward the system, we start painting more and more layers on it, really diving in with all the design and environment art teams to hone in on exactly all the structures and settlements and stuff for the players to interact and do with. So just like we've been doing with Pyro for the past however many months it's been, we're gonna turn and eventually do that again with Nyx, and we'll know more about, there's these, space stations that are around the system because we need places for players to be able to refuel or get more oxygen out and stuff like that. So all that will be coming as development goes.
Okay. We're going to put a link. I just dropped the link in for the Moraine that they just talked about so you guys can get some background on them. Jade, you want to talk about them a little bit?
Yeah. So, we look at Nyx as this independent system, and we were talking about Star Wars and Star Trek and parallels. The Moraine would probably be the parallel for them would be the Belters of the Expanse. So they basically see themselves as a family. the first tenet of their code is all for family, and that in everything they do, the found family of the Moraine must come first, right? And so they are basically smugglers and thieves that are based in the Glacium Ring, and they're too aggressive to be in the People's Alliance, and they think that it's their right to basically steal from the rich and the powerful, and give to the poor amongst their family. So yeah, very, very Belter type mentality.
And they really have this attitude of loyalty and allegiance to each other. I thought about the Belters, and I thought about the Mandalorian. I thought about this whole, they have a code that exists within their culture as well, that basically says that they will basically look out for each other under any circumstance to the fullest degree. But they also say that connectivity also holds them accountable to each other too. So that if somebody were to do something wrong or do something bad, they know exactly who did it. And they know who their family is. That really blew my mind, because it sounded like, we'll make sure the retribution gets to you one way or other if you act up. It's like, wow. But yeah, the fact that they have this code that they live by is interesting. And I'm curious to see whether or not because they talk about taking from the rich, and the rich aren't in Nyx, right? So the question becomes,
well, they do travel through Nyx.
But that was my point.
Yeah.
Whether they become like Robin Hood, they capture the trade ships that happen to come through that are owned by the UEE or wealth, or will they be like raiders where they will pop up? Like we get Xeno threat coming in because of the whole Xeno political thing, but will these jokers pop up somewhere like a luxury system? Right? I forget which one it is where the luxury folks are. Goss, yeah.
Terra?
Will they pop up and, hit and run? There's a lot of possibilities, right? A lot of possibilities.
And one of the things about Nyx, it's that recently, in the recent history of the Star Citizen universe, it has become a bit more strategic in terms of making money, because a lot of the shipments of stuff going to build Synth World go through Nyx. Mm-hmm. So it's got lucrative shipping lanes for the Moraine to go and pirate.
Agreed.
Oh, and I want to also just real quick say big thanks to Sherry and Dave and Adam and all of the narrative team, because this video and this community's question response were in response to questions I submitted. So thank you so much.
Pays off, right?
Yeah, it does.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I tell you what, we have, I got to make sure I have all my screens up here correctly. We're going to see, do we have any questions? We guys have had a lot of
we do.
Cool chat stuff going on here today.
We do. 2 questions.
Yes, we do. We have a couple of old ones in here, which I need to get rid of. So, okay. Jad. Hey, Jad, glad to have you with us today. Jad says, is it possible to have a star that is endothermic? Would the solar system be completely dark? We're going to give that one to fastcart. No, we're going to give that to Jade.
No.
I want fastcart to do this one. Fastcart's all you.
So, yes, it's been possible. Yes, guaranteed, 100%. Thumbs up.
So no. Well, yes and no. Like, so what you're basically describing is like a black hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a singularity, right? So not a star in the conventional sense, but there was a stellar object called a black hole that it would make things dark, but it wouldn't be around much longer to see it anyway if you're past the event horizon.
Yeah. That's true. I was going to ask you, how long would the system be around? It would be the issue.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, Jad.
And the interesting thing is, there is a black hole in the verse. I can't think of the name of the system now, but it was on the star map. But it's not working at the moment.
I believe would that be null?
I don't think so. I don't
No.
remember. So maybe someone else
I can check.
will know in chat.
Thanks to Listiana, I can check actually.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was watching this video a bit ago. It's in like 4 billion years, instead of black holes, there may be white holes. So maybe it'll be opposite of a black hole. We'll see. Well, we won't
see.
We won't be
see.
around. But we'll, you know what I mean.
It's an interesting theory. Okay.
Tamsa, that's it.
That's it, Tamsa.
Oh, yeah.
Should have known that.
I've forgotten that. Jeez, you're right. So you said the name is such
Yeah,
a unique
I
name.
remember the black hole. I just forgot the name of Tamsa. But yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, we've got a question from Pops in space. Hey, Pops. Pyro has solar flares. Nyx has a dwarf star that is tiny and dim. Do they have any negative effects on health? Is it dim per se, Jade?
Yeah. So
And, I mean, in relation to Pyro Star.
Okay. What
K-Star?
Nyx's system in relation to Pyro?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah,
I'm asking.
No,
that question.
Nyx's star is a F class main
F-class,
sequence. It's
right?
brighter than our sun. It's going to be brighter than Stanton, and it's definitely brighter than Pyro. Pyro originally was going to be an M dwarf, like a little red dwarf, but then they retconned it to being a K dwarf, which is just slightly smaller and less luminous than our sun.
Okay.
And as far as his question about do flares and that have negative effects, yes.
Well, no, he's asking. He says even though we know Pyro has that, he's asking for this type of star.
Oh,
are there any type of health, radiation, anything like that?
Yeah, so like as you go up the mass and luminosity scale of stars, they become less active as far as flare activity for the most part. I mean, there are crazy exceptions out there, but just as a general rule. So like our sun has solar flares, but not like, some crazy M dwarfs do. And F-class main sequence star would have less flare activity than our sun. So it would actually be a little bit calmer than our sun or Stanton.
Okay, it's good to know. For those of you who like to fly close to stars, here you go. You can do it.
Someone's asking how do you ask questions. I'm looking for the bot to copy and paste it, but basically you click on the clip below and you click on the option that says ask question. There's only one token for the to ask, but yeah, that's how you do it. But yeah.
Alrighty. Well, that's our show on Nyx this week. Boy, a lot of ground covered for a system that we know absolutely nothing about. No, I'm just kidding. We do know a few things about Nyx, and we are excited to see what else CIG will begin to unveil. As Jade said earlier, they drop these little breadcrumbs, these little tidbits here and there to us, and that's one of the reasons why we picked this particular one. We could have talked about some other systems, but we do think that this is going to be at least the direction that they'll be going in. So keep your fingers crossed beyond Pyro that maybe Nyx will be next. But if not, I'm sure we'll be happy with whatever system they give us as they expand the Star Citizen universe. Want to hit on a couple things here before we close out the show. Thank you guys for being here today, for one. I do want to go back to Star Jump Ender. Earlier, as you guys know, we've had a great relationship with the folks over at Star Jump Station with Grim and Starlet and Ender. And Grim has talked about on many occasions that Ender is on the side of their organization where he does awareness for charities. And this year he's taken on the task of bringing out, highlighting St. Jude's Hospital, Children's Hospital. A couple of years ago, we did our own piece for St. Jude. I think it was when we did War of the Worlds. We raised money for St. Jude. And this year, after he sent out a message to several content creators, I told fastcart that he had done that and that we would hopefully get on board with that. So we need to get our act together and join him in that positive effort. He dropped us a message that says the RSI Galaxy Refinery Pack next weekend. Fastcart, if you wouldn't mind putting in Ender's Twitch, please. Put it as an announcement. The RSI Galaxy Refinery Pack next weekend, just for your information, for a $25 donation to St. Jude. Using his link will get you an entry. He's got the link here. This is going to be on Tiltify. If you guys donate $25 toward the St. Jude Children's Hospital, you will be entered automatically for that Galaxy Refinery Pack next weekend. That's going to be on next weekend. So hopefully you guys will get over there and support him Andrew's a great guy. He's got a big heart, and yeah, he's a great content creator and streamer. So hopefully you'll be able to do that. There are a couple other points I wanted to mention. I meant to mention this at the beginning of the show, but it slipped my mind. Fastcart had put these in for us in our channel in the Star Citizen. Where's media games info?
Oh shoot, I gotta look for a raid.
Yeah, I'm talking, so feel free to look while I'm doing that. Those of you guys know, the first thing I want to tell you that is that Alpha 18.2 is in the PTU right now. You guys know that there's been a whole piece on Xenothreat, and now today's Sunday, Jumptown 2.1 is going on. So feel free to jump in and test that out. Let's get it going real well. Also, don't forget that they're doing the free fly this week. There was a note that Xylo put out yesterday, Friday. I'm not sure if this is still going on or whether they fixed it, but he says we've identified an issue where the free fly ships are not showing up for some of the existing backers who logged in before the event. If you logged in before the event, it's important to note that new players are not affected by this issue. So if you invited some friends and stuff to try out Star Citizen, hopefully they won't be salty because they can't get the free ships. They may be salty about some other stuff, but the free ships, they should be able to get them. So I know many of you like to be able to tell people about it because you know there's a referral going on right now where you can get a P52 Merlin for doing referrals. So just so you guys will be aware, but if you're having problems because you're a current backer, understand the CIG did make an announcement and say that they were aware of that as an issue. Okay, that is that. Let's talk.
By my living Levski life. Mug.
Oh yes, yeah, Jade, talk about.
How to say it?
Yes, as you guys know, we do have our merchandise, and one of the things that we did this year as a part of our fundraiser. Thank you, Sherm. Thank you for that follow.
Thank you, Sherm.
We produced 12 mugs for all of the different hosts and co-hosts of Soul Citizens, and Jade has one that says loving Levski life?
Living Levski life.
Living Levski life.
Living Levski.
Yeah, so you know you can make your own collection and buy my mug, okay? You know, you guys can support any of your favorite co-hosts. You know, the mugs are out there, they're great quality and they're very cool. And you can have your own other than Star Citizen collection of glasses and mugs, you can have your own Soul Citizens collections of mugs and glasses. So have at it out there, okay?
And this benefits the show.
This is a benefits the show. Yeah, anything that comes in here, we take that money, turn it right back around. We do our ships. We gave away last week on our anniversary, we gave away three sets of Star Citizen glasses and a vulture, right? So it's like $300 worth of stuff we gave away last week. So yeah, we try to turn the money right back around and do some giveaways for you guys. So we've got Invictus coming up, so you'll be supporting us then, and we know we do giveaways when that comes up, especially if there's something new that CIG releases. And we have Alien Week coming up after that, so we'll be doing some giveaways. Let's talk about. We should do some merchandise too. Next week we'll do some merchandise. When we do next week's show. Jade, let's talk about Thursday, Fastcart, talk about Saturday, and I'll talk about Sunday.
Yes, so Thursday, every single Thursday, is Soul Talk, which is at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And that is where you can come into our Discord and come on to the show and talk with us. Like, here's where we talk with you. That show is where you talk with us. And we talk about Star Citizen, what's going on in the community, whatever we liked, whatever we didn't like, you know, all of it, drama, whatever, we bring it. So yeah, come to Soul Talk.
And on Saturday, we have Soul Voices, that is Griffin, where it's more one-on-one, whereas Soul Talk is more community, or more, group-oriented. Soul Voices more one-on-one. We cover what's happening on Spectrum, what's happening on Reddit, and something that's happening in the industry at large. So yeah, that's Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. UTC, and that's part of Podcast Saturday.
Thank you very much. And I was trying to figure out, I see North End. I saw your message, North End. North End Trooper, I'm going to throw this question in because he's trying to get it in under the wire. Ronan, 0006.
Ronan, thank you for the follow.
Thank you for the follow. North End Trooper asks, is there any mention of higher level of danger when jumping between jump points? I mean, once you're outside of the Helios sphere.
Oh, good question. Good question. So, as far as I know, I haven't seen any jump point on the Arc star map that would be outside of the heliosphere. So, for people who don't know, the heliosphere is basically where the solar wind is now counteracted by the actual interstellar medium, right? So, like, it's really the end of the technical end of the solar system or any star system. So I don't think they've put any jump points outside of what would be the heliosphere of these stars. But I mean, I would imagine that, you know, if they were to do that, they would probably come up with some sort of reason for why they do that.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I tried to answer the question, but I misunderstood. I thought he was talking about once you're within the jump point. I said once you're within, if you hit the edge, you might drop out of the traveling thing. But yeah,
It's a little bit different. Yeah, interesting question.
Yeah,
And you know,
I mean,
CIG has a lot of latitude to do all types of stuff when it comes to us navigating and traveling. You know,
Exactly.
Okay. All right, and next week's show, the Camera Eye. Hope you guys can join us for this one. Very special guests are going to be joining us. His Divine Shadow will be here, who considers themselves an amateur digital photographer in game, but I've seen their work before and I always really enjoy it. We're also going to have Mr. Hazgaha here, who will be here sharing some of his images and sharing with us some techniques about how they get these beautiful images. You know, Star Citizen is often called one of the best screenshot games ever. You know, you make these beautiful images. Sometimes Screenshot Simulator. And so they're going to be here next week to give us some tips on things to look for. If you're into that, making desktops, all that cool stuff, that's going to be next week's show at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So that will be it. Want to give some shout outs to both Fastcart and Jade for being here tonight and sharing their wealth of knowledge with you guys. Thank you guys for all the great stuff you guys shared in the chat. As always, it was a very vibrant chat today. Gladestone, you're always here just starting trouble, but I love you anyway. So thank you for hanging out with us today. Aliciana, as always, thank you for being here. We miss you and always great to see you when you pop in. And for everybody who's here today, thank you guys for coming over. Those who came over from Ender's Raid. I think there was somebody else who raided us too. I can't remember. Was it just Ender? I think it was just Ender. Yeah. But thank you guys.
No, we had another one, but I forget.
Yeah, Ronan.
I
wasn't Ronan. I forget. But yeah, thank you guys for coming over from the raid and hanging out with us as well. And the questions we got today too. We are going to set up to go raid one of our own. Yo-Yo Meg is out there right now. You guys know Yo-Yo, very, very cool person, great streamer. So she's been blowing up. She's been streaming every day now. She and Abdi have been killing it. So when you guys get over with Yo-Yo, let her know that you came over from the Soul Citizens. Give her our love. You guys make sure you drop a follow on her. She is so cool. She has so much energy. She's new to the Star Citizen community, but listen, she's starting to know her stuff. She be telling people what to do and this, that, and the other, and everything. So she is in it with both feet at this point. So yeah, that's it. Once again, thank you guys for being here. And as always, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and peace, love, and soul. We'll see you soon. Take care. Ciao.